I'm Amanda Wilson, 35 years old, watching the Mediterranean sunset from my balcony in Monaco. 10 years of marriage to Michael ended when I caught him with Rachel, my best friend since college. They thought they'd won everything when they kicked me out of our Seattle home and company. Little did they know about my offshore accounts and the prenup clause Michael never bothered to read. Before I share how I rebuilt my life while they spiraled into bankruptcy, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and subscribe if you want more stories about sweet, calculated justice. The first time I met Michael Parker was at a tech startup conference in Boston. I was presenting on financial strategy for emerging companies, a topic I'd specialized in since earning my MBA from NYU. He sat in the front row, asking intelligent questions that showed genuine interest rather than the typical male posturing I'd grown accustomed to in finance circles. With his sharp blue eyes and thoughtful demeanor, Michael stood out from the usual tech bros dominating these events. After my presentation, he approached with specific questions about international market expansion. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from business to personal interests, and before I knew it, we'd spent 3 hours talking over coffee. He was developing a revolutionary software platform for supply chain management, and his passion for solving real business problems resonated with my practical approach to finance. Our romance developed quickly. Michael lived in Seattle while I was based in New York, but we made it work with weekend visits and video calls that lasted until dawn. He understood my drive and ambition in a way previous partners never had. 8 months later, he proposed during a sunset walk along the beach in Maui. I said yes without hesitation. Rachel Davis had been my roommate since freshman year at NYU. We'd supported each other through bad breakups, career challenges, and family dramas. When I called to tell her about my engagement, she screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I knew he was the one for you," she exclaimed. It was natural that she would be my maid of honor. Our wedding was intimate but beautiful, with just 50 guests at a beachfront ceremony in Maui. Rachel handled so many details, from my dress alterations to coordinating with vendors when I was swamped with work. During her maid of honor speech, she tearfully said, "Amanda and Michael prove that brilliant minds and beautiful hearts belong together." I remember hugging her, thinking how lucky I was to have both an amazing husband and such a loyal friend. After our honeymoon in Greece, Michael suggested I move to Seattle rather than him relocating to New York. The tech scene was booming, and with my financial expertise and his software development skills, we could build something incredible together. I agreed, excited about our future and the chance to start fresh in a new city. Wilson Tech Solutions was born in our spare bedroom. Michael developed the software while I created our business plan, secured initial funding, and managed operations. We worked 18-hour days, fueled by passion and the belief in what we were building. Our first major client came through my connection with a former classmate, and their testimonial opened doors to bigger opportunities. As the company grew, we hired a small team and moved into proper office space. Rachel, who had been working at a struggling marketing agency in New York, mentioned she was looking for a change. Michael suggested bringing her on as our marketing director. "Who better than someone who already knows and believes in us?" he said. I agreed, thrilled to have my best friend join our venture. With Rachel's creative campaigns, our client base expanded rapidly. Within 3 years, we'd grown to 30 employees and moved into premium office space in downtown Seattle. We purchased a beautiful home on Lake Washington with panoramic views of the water and mountains. Life seemed perfect. We hosted charity galas, traveled to exotic locations, and were featured in regional business publications as a power couple. What nobody knew was how my childhood had shaped my approach to finances. My parents had lost everything in the 2008 recession, their decades of hard work erased because they'd put all their eggs in one basket. I watched them struggle well into their 60s, taking jobs they were overqualified for just to make ends meet. That experience left an indelible mark on me. Even as our company flourished, I maintained separate accounts and gradually established offshore structures in the Cayman Islands and later Monaco. Initially, it was for tax efficiency, but it evolved into my personal insurance policy. I never discussed these arrangements with Michael, who took a more carefree approach to money. "We're making plenty," he'd say whenever I suggested more conservative financial moves for our personal assets. Our 5th anniversary celebration should have been my first real warning. Michael organized a surprise party at our favorite restaurant, inviting close friends and key business associates. During his toast, he spent several minutes praising Rachel's contributions to the company's success. "Without Rachel's brilliant marketing, we might still be working from our spare bedroom," he said, raising his glass in her direction. My contribution warranted only a brief mention as Amanda's support. I told myself it was just poor word choice, but something felt off. As our company approached its 7th year, Michael's ego grew with our success. In meetings, he would rephrase my ideas as his own. At networking events, he introduced me as his wife first and business partner second, despite my equal role in founding and growing the company. I worked harder, thinking if I proved my worth beyond any doubt, the proper recognition would follow. How naive I was. The first clear disappointment came on my 33rd birthday. Michael had promised a special dinner at Canlis, Seattle's premier restaurant. That morning, he kissed me goodbye and reminded me to be ready by 7. At 3 in the afternoon, he texted that an emergency meeting with potential investors would run late and we'd have to reschedule. Disappointed but understanding, I ordered takeout and opened a bottle of wine alone. Later that night, while scrolling through Instagram, I noticed one of our mutual connections had posted photos from dinner at Altura, another upscale Seattle restaurant. In the background of one photo, I could make out Michael's profile at a corner table. The timestamp showed 8:30 p.m. There was someone with him, but I couldn't see who. When he came home around midnight, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't mine, he maintained the investor meeting story, adding details about tough negotiations over terms. 2 weeks later, while doing laundry, I found a receipt for Tiffany & Company in his jacket pocket. It showed a purchase of diamond earrings and a matching necklace totaling $11,000. My birthday had come and gone without any gift from Michael, and our anniversary was months away. When casually questioned, he claimed it was for his mother's upcoming birthday, but I'd already sent her a gift from both of us the previous week. Around this time, Rachel suddenly upgraded her lifestyle. She moved from her modest Capitol Hill apartment to a luxury condo in downtown Seattle. Her wardrobe shifted from mainstream brands to designer labels. When I complimented a particularly beautiful Burberry coat, she vaguely mentioned making some good investments that had paid off. Rachel had never shown interest or aptitude for investing before. Michael's behavior toward me changed subtly but unmistakably. My business ideas, once valued, were now scrutinized and often dismissed. He became critical of my appearance, suggesting I dress more like Rachel for client meetings. "She understands the image we want to project," he said after one presentation where a client had particularly praised her work. At an industry conference in San Francisco, I ran into James Bennett, CEO of a company we'd been courting as a client. He mentioned seeing Michael and Rachel at dinner in Napa Valley the previous weekend. They seemed deep in conversation about some big plans, he said casually. When I called Michael that evening, he claimed he'd been working alone at the office all weekend while Rachel had mentioned visiting her parents in Portland. Back in Seattle, strategy meetings began occurring regularly between Michael and Rachel that somehow never required my presence, despite my role as COO. When I questioned this, Michael explained they were just brainstorming marketing approaches that would be brought to me once refined. The exclusion stung, but I tried to focus on my areas of responsibility. Going through our credit card statements, I discovered hotel charges from Portland and Los Angeles during periods when Michael had claimed to be making day trips for client meetings. The Portland hotel charge coincided with a weekend when Rachel had also been supposedly visiting family there. Our physical relationship had become nearly non-existent. Michael consistently cited stress and exhaustion, falling asleep on the couch most nights. On the rare occasions we were intimate, it felt mechanical, as though he was fulfilling an obligation rather than connecting with me. The moment reality became impossible to ignore happened during a dinner party at our home. We'd invited several couples, including some new potential investors. Throughout the evening, I noticed the subtle touches between Michael and Rachel, the inside jokes, the way their eyes found each other across the room. It wasn't just my imagination when I saw his hand linger on her lower back as they examined the artwork in our hallway, or how they disappeared simultaneously for 15 minutes during dessert. That night, after everyone left, I confronted Michael. "Is there something going on between you and Rachel?" I asked directly. His reaction was a textbook case of gaslighting. He laughed incredulously, called me paranoid, and questioned if I was drinking too much. "Rachel is your best friend and our employee," he said with exaggerated patience. "Maybe you should talk to someone about these insecurities." His dismissal only strengthened my suspicions. The next day, I called Jessica Thompson, a divorce attorney recommended by a former classmate who had gone through her own messy separation. We met discreetly at a cafe outside the city. Jessica listened carefully to my concerns and recommended I gather information while protecting myself financially. "Washington is a community property state," she explained. "But prenuptial agreements can override standard distributions if properly executed. Do you have one?" I did, an extensive document Michael had complained about but ultimately signed before our wedding. I'd insisted on it after watching my parents' financial devastation. Jessica requested a copy to review and advised me to start documenting everything. Over the next weeks, I strengthened my offshore arrangements, transferring additional personal assets through legal channels. I collected and organized documentation of all company assets and intellectual property, creating secure digital backups. Michael, absorbed in whatever was happening with Rachel, didn't notice my late nights at the office weren't all about work. A scheduled business trip to Singapore gave me time to plan more carefully. While officially securing new Asian market partnerships, I also consulted with international banking experts and established new accounts. I updated my passport and visa status, creating options I hoped I'd never need to use. Upon returning to Seattle, I hired Thomas Reynolds, a private investigator with expertise in corporate espionage and matrimonial cases. "I need definitive evidence," I told him. "And I need it collected legally and ethically." He understood the delicacy of the situation and proposed a careful approach that would protect my interests without tipping my hand. The first report from Thomas arrived via encrypted email 3 weeks later. The attached photos showed Michael and Rachel entering the Four Seasons Hotel in Portland, holding hands. Additional images documented them dining intimately at Departure, a rooftop restaurant, clearly more romantic than professional. They were captured kissing in the elevator and entering a room registered under Michael's name. They stayed for the entire weekend. More devastating than the physical evidence were the text messages Thomas had legally obtained. In one exchange, Rachel wrote, "We need to figure out how to get her out of the company without raising red flags. The lawyers say her ownership complicates things." Michael's response, "She trusts me completely. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. After the restructure, we can move forward with everything we've planned." Reading those messages in my home office, I felt physical pain unlike anything I'd experienced before. My chest tightened until breathing became difficult. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited repeatedly. When I finally steadied myself, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the pale, shaking woman staring back at me. The betrayal triggered a cascade of physical symptoms. Insomnia kept me awake most nights, leading to exhaustion that coffee couldn't combat. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks without trying. Anxiety attacks would hit without warning, forcing me to lock myself in bathroom stalls or my office until they passed. Yet somehow I maintained a composed facade at work and home, determined not to show my hand. After receiving Thomas's second report, which included evidence of their meetups at a secluded cabin on Whidbey Island, I confronted Michael again. This time, I was careful not to reveal my knowledge, simply expressing concern about our growing distance. His response was chilling. He suggested I was becoming mentally unstable and mentioned that perhaps I should talk to someone professional. When I pushed back, he threatened to have me evaluated, implying my paranoid behavior was affecting the company. The next day, Rachel approached me with seemingly genuine concern. "Michael mentioned you've been struggling lately," she said, placing her hand sympathetically on mine. "I'm worried about you. Maybe I could help mediate between you two." The performance was masterful, her eyes projecting warmth while she plotted to take everything from me. I thanked her and said I'd consider it, wondering how I'd ever trusted someone capable of such betrayal. While they thought I was focused on my mental health, I discovered documents on the company server outlining a restructuring plan that would effectively dilute my ownership to a minority position. The plan hinged on my signing several complex agreements that buried the true implications under layers of legal jargon. Had I not been looking specifically for such deception, I might have missed it entirely. Further investigation revealed funds being systematically diverted from our main company accounts to a new entity controlled jointly by Michael and Rachel. The amounts were calculated to fall just below thresholds that would trigger automatic notifications. Over 6 months, they had siphoned nearly $2 million into this shadow account. I expanded my legal team, bringing in specialists in corporate law and international finance. We met in private locations, communicating through secure channels. The attorneys confirmed my suspicions about the restructuring documents and helped me understand exactly what Michael and Rachel were attempting. They also reviewed my prenuptial agreement and found provisions that would prove crucial. Washington state allows single-party consent for recording conversations, a fact I leveraged carefully. Small recording devices captured discussions in our home and my private office at work. I never recorded in spaces where others had expectation of privacy, ensuring everything remained admissible if needed. The recordings documented multiple conversations where Michael and Rachel discussed their plans, unaware I was creating a record of their conspiracy. Therapy became my lifeline during this period, though not in the way Michael assumed. My therapist, Dr. Levine, helped me process the betrayal while maintaining the clarity needed to protect myself. "You're experiencing trauma," she explained during one session. "Your body and mind are responding normally to abnormal circumstances." Her validation helped counter the gaslighting that had made me question my own perceptions. I meticulously documented all intellectual property I'd developed for the company, including financial models and client relationship frameworks that were central to our success. I secured copies of all client contracts, paying particular attention to language about key personnel and transfer of responsibilities. If Michael and Rachel thought they could simply remove me and maintain business relationships, they were sorely mistaken. By this point, they had grown increasingly bold. They arrived together at company functions and left together afterward. Their offices, once at opposite ends of our floor, were now adjacent after a space optimization Michael had ordered. I occasionally caught glimpses of intimate moments through glass walls before they remembered to close blinds. Some employees gave me pitying looks, while others avoided eye contact altogether. My preparations continued methodically. I transferred additional assets through completely legal channels, ensuring every transaction was properly documented and tax compliant. I established a comfortable living situation in Monaco, a country chosen for its banking privacy, quality of life, and lack of extradition treaties with the United States for financial matters. Thanksgiving brought a new level of humiliation when Michael invited Rachel to join our family dinner. My parents had passed years earlier, and we usually spent holidays with Michael's family in Portland. This year, he presented Rachel as a close friend who shouldn't be alone for the holiday. His mother embraced her warmly while casting curious glances my way. During dinner, they shared inside jokes and stories that excluded me, while his family treated me like an afterthought in my own marriage. By December, I had established a new identity in Monaco, not a false one but a professional presence as an international financial consultant. I secured a beautiful villa overlooking the Mediterranean, complete with home office setup for my new venture. My escape route was established, though I still hoped somehow there might be an explanation that would make sense of everything. In January, I completed my final major business deal for Wilson Tech Solutions, securing a partnership with a Japanese conglomerate that would increase company valuation by 30%. Michael was happy to let me handle these international relationships, unaware that I was simultaneously building my own professional network outside the company. I made sure the contracts included clauses that would become relevant if leadership changed, protecting both the client and my own interests. February 15th should have been an ordinary Wednesday. I was scheduled to attend a week-long financial technology conference in New York, a trip Michael had encouraged. "Take your time there, network, enjoy the city," he'd said with unusual generosity. My suspicions aroused, I pretended to leave but instead checked into a downtown Seattle hotel. After 2 days of remote work and coordination with my legal team, I returned to our home unannounced. The sound of music and laughter guided me from the garage entrance through the house. Our bedroom door was partially open, and I stood there for several moments, watching Michael and Rachel in our bed, surrounded by champagne bottles and rose petals. The Valentine's Day celebration they'd apparently begun the previous night was continuing into a second day, in my home, in my bed, while I was supposed to be across the country. Their shocked expressions when they finally noticed me standing in the doorway quickly transformed into something worse. Michael started laughing, not embarrassed or ashamed, but with cruel relief. "Well, this saves us a conversation," he said, making no attempt to cover himself or show any remorse. Rachel, wrapped in my favorite silk throw, actually smirked. "Amanda, you should have called ahead. This is awkward." Her tone was more amused than apologetic, as though I was the inconvenience in this scenario. Michael got up, casually pulling on his boxer shorts. "Since we're doing this now, let's just get it all out there. I want a divorce. Rachel and I are in love, and frankly, have been for some time." Rachel nodded, adding with faux compassion, "We didn't mean for it to happen, but honestly, Michael and I connect on a level that you two never did. I'm better for him in every way. Intellectually, emotionally, physically." She emphasized the last word while running her hand along Michael's arm. "As for the company," Michael continued coldly, "we've already filed paperwork to restructure. The board supports the changes. You'll be removed as an officer next week. We're prepared to offer you a modest settlement if you go quietly. Fight and you'll get nothing." Rachel chimed in, "We thought it would be easier when you were in New York. We have meetings scheduled with clients tomorrow to announce the transition. Most are already on board." My entire body trembled as the reality hit me. Despite all the evidence I'd gathered, some part of me had hoped there was another explanation. But their cruelty in this moment left no doubt. 10 years of marriage and friendship meant nothing to either of them. "The prenup?" I whispered, genuinely shocked at their confidence. Michael waved dismissively. "That ancient document? My lawyer handled it years ago. There are a dozen ways around it. Besides, it only applies to assets at the time of marriage. The company was built afterward." They had clearly rehearsed this moment, perhaps fantasizing about it for months. Now, watching my world collapse seemed to give them pleasure. Every shared memory, every moment I thought was genuine, was tainted by their betrayal. I performed exactly as they expected. I broke down completely, sobbing and begging Michael to reconsider. I pleaded with Rachel, invoking our years of friendship. I fell to my knees, a completely broken woman, asking what I had done to deserve this betrayal. Their expressions shifted from cruel amusement to uncomfortable pity, then to impatience. "Just sign the papers, Amanda," Michael said, tossing a document folder on the bed. "Take the settlement. Start over somewhere. You're making this harder than it needs to be." Through tears, I nodded and took the folder. "I just want this pain to end," I whispered, which was the only honest thing I'd said since entering the room. "Can I have a few days to review this with a lawyer?" They exchanged glances, clearly pleased with my surrender. "3 days," Michael said firmly. "Then we proceed either way." I spent that night in a hotel, not the one where I'd been staying, but a new location where they wouldn't think to look for me. I called my legal team, confirming everything was ready. "They took the bait," I told Jessica. "They believe I'm completely defeated." Over the next 2 days, I played the role of a devastated, resigned woman. I moved my essential belongings to a small apartment downtown, leaving behind most possessions as though too emotionally broken to care about material things. I signed preliminary paperwork that my lawyers had confirmed was non-binding. I pleaded for basic financial support during the transition, acting grateful when Michael agreed to a pittance. Michael and Rachel wasted no time claiming their victory. They moved into our home together and threw a lavish New Beginnings party just 1 week after I'd caught them. They invited colleagues and friends, many who had no idea about the circumstances and were told I was taking some time away for health reasons. A sympathetic executive assistant who attended texted me photos of them drinking champagne in the living room I had designed, laughing with guests as though nothing unseemly had occurred. The most damning evidence came from a server at the party, a college student who recognized me from company events and was disgusted by their behavior. He secretly recorded their drunken toast to finally getting rid of dead weight and moving forward with the right team, Michael had announced, clinking glasses with Rachel. And to Amanda, wherever she is, thanks for making it so easy to take everything. Their guests, mostly Michael's friends and business associates who barely knew me, laughed appreciatively. While they celebrated, I finalized my preparations. I changed passwords and access credentials to my personal accounts and removed my access to company systems to avoid any accusations of impropriety. I backed up all evidence to secure servers and entrusted physical copies to my attorneys. I made my last visits to treasured Seattle locations, saying goodbye to the city I had called home for a decade. My legal team held a final strategy session in a private room at a nondescript hotel outside the city. We reviewed every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. We confirmed the timing of filings and the sequence of events that would unfold after my departure. Jessica squeezed my hand as the meeting concluded. "They have no idea what's coming," she said with grim satisfaction. Leaving felt surreal. That evening, I had dinner alone at Altura, the restaurant where Michael had taken Rachel months earlier when he'd claimed to be in an investor meeting. I ordered their tasting menu and most expensive wine, not as extravagance, but as a ritual of closure. The next morning, I would board a plane and leave behind the ruins of my marriage and friendship, but also the pretense and pain of recent months. Sitting there, savoring each bite and sip, I felt both tremendous grief and the first flutters of liberation. The life I had built was gone, destroyed by the two people I had trusted most. Yet somehow, beneath the sorrow, there was a whisper of something new emerging. Not happiness, not yet, but perhaps its prerequisite, freedom. The first-class cabin on the overnight flight to Paris offered privacy pods that became my sanctuary. As Seattle disappeared beneath the clouds, I felt physical relief, as though distance itself could dilute the pain. I slept deeply for the first time in months, waking only when the flight attendant gently announced our approach to Charles de Gaulle Airport. After a brief layover, I continued to Nice, where a private car service waited to drive me along the stunning coastal road to Monaco. The Mediterranean sparkled in the February sunshine, so different from Seattle's perpetual gray winter drizzle. My driver, Antoine, pointed out landmarks and shared local history, treating me not as a woman fleeing heartbreak, but as an honored new resident. My villa exceeded expectations. Perched on a hillside in the Larvado district, its terraced gardens and panoramic views instantly soothed my ragged nerves. The property management company had prepared everything according to my instructions. Kitchen stocked, utilities connected, security system activated. Within hours, it felt more like home than the Seattle house had in recent months. Just as I was settling in for my first night, my phone rang with Jessica's number. "It's done," she said without preamble. "The comprehensive divorce filing has been submitted with all supporting evidence. Michael and Rachel have been served at both the residence and the office. The court has scheduled an emergency hearing on the financial aspects for next week." "How did they react?" I asked, realizing I still cared despite everything. The process server said Michael turned white as a sheet when he saw the infidelity clause highlighted in the prenup. Apparently, he started screaming for his lawyer immediately. That clause had been non-negotiable for me when drafting our prenup. It stipulated that in case of infidelity, the cheating spouse would forfeit all rights to business entities created during the marriage. Michael had dismissed it as standard legal language and signed without reading carefully, confident he'd never be affected by such provisions. Attached to the divorce filing was a forensic accounting report documenting the financial misconduct and fund diversion Michael and Rachel had orchestrated. The report traced every dollar they had attempted to hide and included evidence of their plans to force me out of the company. The court immediately issued orders freezing all business and personal accounts pending investigation. Within hours, Michael's messages began flooding my phone. They evolved rapidly from demanding, "Call me right now and explain this bullshit," to threatening, "You'll regret this. I know people who can make your life miserable anywhere in the world," to eventually begging, "Please, Amanda, we can work this out. I made a terrible mistake. Just talk to me." Rachel's emails followed a similar trajectory, starting with confidence. "This pathetic attempt won't work. You signed preliminary agreements," shifting to desperate as reality set in, "Amanda, I know I hurt you, but destroying the company hurts everyone, including innocent employees. Think about them." I didn't respond to either of them. My lawyers handled all communication, informing them that any direct contact could be considered harassment and would be reported to the court. Each message they sent strengthened my legal position while demonstrating their panic. Meanwhile, I established a new daily routine in Monaco. Mornings began with coffee on my terrace, watching the sunrise over the Mediterranean. I took French lessons 3 times weekly and joined a local yoga studio. Afternoons were dedicated to setting up my new consulting firm, focusing on international clients with no connections to my previous business life. Gradually, I made new acquaintances who knew nothing of my past. There was Sophie, my French teacher who invited me to language exchange dinners, Marco, an Italian financial consultant who shared valuable insights about European markets, and Elise, an expatriate from South Africa who became my first real friend in Monaco. These simple, genuine connections began healing wounds I thought might be permanent. Back in Seattle, Michael and Rachel were discovering the consequences of their actions. Their attempts to access company accounts were rebuffed by banking officials citing court orders. The evidence package my lawyers had delivered to board members and key investors prompted an emergency board meeting where Michael faced uncomfortable questions about fiduciary responsibility and ethical leadership. Seattle business publications ran stories with headlines like, "Wilson Tech Solutions Leadership Crisis," "Co-founder alleges fraud and misconduct," and "Tech power couple's divorce reveals company in turmoil." Clients began expressing concerns about stability and leadership, with several putting projects on hold pending resolution. I watched these developments from the safety of my new home, neither gloating nor intervening. My lawyers kept me informed without requiring my direct involvement, allowing me space to rebuild while they handled the legal battles. The distance provided perspective I couldn't have achieved while still in Seattle. 3 months after my departure, my new consulting firm launched officially. I focused on helping European companies navigate American markets and vice versa, leveraging my expertise without directly competing with Wilson Tech Solutions. My first clients came through referrals from business contacts who knew my work ethic and abilities, separate from the company I'd co-founded. The court required my testimony, which I provided via formal video deposition rather than returning to Seattle. For 8 hours, I calmly presented evidence and answered questions, my composure a stark contrast to Michael's increasingly erratic behavior in similar proceedings. The recordings of their conversations, the financial documentation, and the text messages created an insurmountable case against them. Their counterattacks proved ineffective. Claims that I had abandoned the company were refuted by evidence of their conspiracy. Accusations that I had misappropriated funds were dismissed after forensic accounting showed every transaction I'd made was legitimate and properly documented. Their attempt to portray me as mentally unstable backfired when colleagues and clients testified to my consistent professionalism and sound judgment. 6 months after my departure from Seattle, the court issued its definitive ruling. The judge rejected all of Michael's attempts to invalidate the prenuptial agreement, finding that he had entered into the contract willingly and with legal representation. The infidelity clause was deemed enforceable, particularly given the overwhelming evidence of the affair and the couple's admitted intentions. Through my attorneys, I learned about Michael and Rachel's spending during the brief period before accounts were frozen. Believing they had successfully pushed me out, they had purchased a 60-foot yacht docked at Elliott Bay Marina and put a down payment on a vacation home in Aspen. These impulsive decisions now compounded their financial predicament as they faced mounting legal bills and restricted access to company funds. The social consequences proved equally devastating for them. As the truth emerged about the nature of their relationship and their treatment of me, mutual friends distanced themselves. Rachel's closest college friends, who had known me equally long, cut ties with her completely. Even Michael's family expressed disappointment, his sister calling to offer a heartfelt apology for how they had treated me at Thanksgiving, unaware of the actual circumstances. Michael made increasingly desperate attempts to save the company, approaching potential investors with revised business plans that minimized Rachel's role and emphasized remaining executive talent. These efforts failed as due diligence inevitably uncovered the ongoing legal issues and leadership concerns. Several prospective investors contacted me directly, seeking my perspective before making decisions. Reports from former colleagues painted a picture of deteriorating relations between Michael and Rachel as financial pressures mounted. They were frequently overheard arguing in their offices, blaming each other for various aspects of their predicament. The unified front they had presented while conspiring against me crumbled under actual adversity. The final court judgment awarded me 70% ownership of Wilson Tech Solutions based on the prenuptial agreement and evidence of their misconduct. Additionally, I received the Lake Washington home and other significant assets. Michael was left with personal possessions and a small percentage of the company value, much of which went toward legal fees and tax obligations. Business journals reported their bankruptcy filing in October, 7 months after I'd caught them together. The yacht was repossessed, the Aspen property sold at a loss, and they moved from our former home to a rented apartment in a less prestigious Seattle neighborhood. Photos of Michael entering his new workplace appeared online, showing him reporting to a mid-level position at a former competitor who had acquired some of Wilson Tech's smaller assets. Rachel attempted to leverage her marketing experience into a lifestyle blog featuring luxury products and travel, but gained minimal traction. Brands researching potential partnerships discovered the scandal, making most unwilling to associate with her. The lavish lifestyle she had anticipated with Michael evaporated along with their plans and resources. Meanwhile, my international consulting business thrived. Operating from Monaco with clients across Europe and Asia, I built a reputation for integrity and expertise entirely separate from my previous venture. I assembled a small, dedicated team who knew nothing of my past unless I chose to share it. The work was challenging and fulfilling, focused on my true strengths rather than navigating the complexities of a troubled partnership. I sold Wilson Tech Solutions to a major competitor at a premium price, negotiating terms that protected existing employees while allowing me to completely sever ties with the company I had co-founded. The substantial proceeds were invested through diversified channels, ensuring my long-term financial security regardless of future personal or professional developments. 8 months after my departure, Samantha Chen, a former colleague who had always been kind to me, visited Monaco while on a European vacation. Over dinner at my favorite local restaurant, she shared the aftermath stories I had deliberately avoided seeking out. "The company was never the same after you left," she said. "Everyone knew what they did to you, and morale collapsed. Most of the original team has moved on to other opportunities." When she mentioned seeing Michael at a coffee shop, looking tired and much older than his years, I was surprised by my own reaction. I felt neither satisfaction nor pity, just a strange emotional distance, as though she were describing a character from a book I'd read long ago rather than the man I had loved for a decade. With financial security established and legal matters resolved, I focused on more meaningful pursuits. I established a substantial foundation dedicated to women's financial literacy, offering resources and mentorship to help others protect themselves from similar situations. The work became a healing channel, transforming my painful experience into something that might benefit others. While I wanted justice, revenge had never been my goal. Seeing Michael and Rachel face consequences for their actions wasn't about punishment, but accountability. They had chosen deception over honesty, betrayal over loyalty, cruelty over kindness. The resulting collapse of their dreams was self-inflicted, the natural outcome of their own choices rather than my orchestration. The most profound irony was that their arrogance and greed had cost them everything, while my caution and preparation had preserved not just my assets, but my ability to rebuild. Had they simply been honest and pursued a civilized separation, all three of us might have emerged intact, if not friends. Instead, their belief that they could easily discard me led directly to their downfall. Winning the legal battle provided validation, but not immediate healing. Despite the financial victory and professional success, grief ambushed me at unexpected moments. A song playing in a cafe, the Seattle rain pattern appearing on my weather app, or catching a glimpse of someone with Michael's gait could trigger waves of loss that left me breathless. These moments gradually became less frequent, but never disappeared entirely. 3 months after settling in Monaco, I began working with Dr. Isabelle Moreau, a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me process not just the end of my marriage, but the loss of a friendship I had valued since college. "You're mourning multiple losses simultaneously," she explained. "Your partner, your friend, your business, your home, your sense of security, and your belief in your own judgment." Learning to trust again became my greatest challenge. I scrutinized new acquaintances for signs of deception, often misinterpreting normal behavior as potential betrayal. Dr. Moreau helped me develop healthier boundaries without complete isolation. "The goal isn't to never trust again," she said, "but to trust wisely, with appropriate verification and boundaries." Slowly, I formed new friendships in Monaco, approaching relationships with greater awareness of my own needs and limits. I joined a book club where intellectual discussions provided connection without immediate intimacy. I volunteered at an international school, helping students improve their English skills. These activities created community without demanding the vulnerability I wasn't ready to offer. My perspective on business relationships evolved significantly. Where I once believed in blending personal and professional connections, I now maintained clearer separation. My new consulting firm operated with transparent structures and explicit agreements that left no room for misinterpretation or manipulation. This clarity attracted clients who valued directness and integrity, creating healthier professional relationships than I'd experienced before. Monaco's beauty became part of my healing process. I learned to sail in the Mediterranean, finding peace in the rhythm of wind and waves. I took cooking classes, mastering Provençal recipes that connected me to my new home. My French improved from basic phrases to comfortable conversation, opening doors to deeper cultural understanding and connection. 2 years passed before I considered dating again. My first attempts were awkward, laden with baggage I hadn't fully unpacked. I ended several promising connections prematurely, spooked by minor issues that triggered memories of betrayal. With Dr. Moreau's guidance, I gradually distinguished between reasonable caution and paralyzing fear, allowing possibilities to develop more naturally. Through it all, I maintained my commitment to financial independence. The prenuptial agreement that protected me from Michael's betrayal became a template for how I approached all significant relationships. Not from cynicism, but from self-respect and pragmatism. I shared this philosophy through my foundation's programs, emphasizing that financial self-protection represents self-care rather than distrust. The mentoring program I established for businesswomen became my most rewarding project, working with entrepreneurs and executives to develop protection strategies for their personal and business assets gave purpose to my experience. One participant tearfully shared that our workshop had given her courage to leave an exploitative business partnership with her resources intact. "You helped me trust my instincts," she said, words that healed something deep within me. Letting go of anger proved more difficult than I anticipated. Even with distance and success, thoughts of Michael and Rachel could trigger intense rage that served no purpose but my own suffering. Dr. Moreau suggested a ritual of release, writing my unspoken thoughts in letters I would never send, then burning them at the water's edge. The practice became monthly, then quarterly, then occasional, as the grip of resentment gradually loosened. 3 years after leaving Seattle, I received an unexpected email from Caitlin, a former friend who had initially sided with Michael and Rachel. "I was wrong," she wrote simply. "I believed what they told me about you without question, and I regret that deeply. They've shown their true characters over time, and I should have known better. I don't expect forgiveness, but wanted you to know I recognize the truth." Her message affected me profoundly, not because I needed her validation, but because it demonstrated how time eventually reveals truth. I responded with genuine appreciation for her honesty, without reopening the door to friendship. Some bridges, once broken, serve better as memories than reconstructions. As I approached my 4th year in Monaco, I realized how completely my life had transformed. The woman who fled Seattle broken and betrayed had become someone stronger, wiser, and paradoxically more open to authentic connection. The pain hadn't disappeared, but had integrated into my story rather than defining it. My new relationship with Julien, a literature professor at the International University of Monaco, progressed slowly and deliberately. Unlike my whirlwind romance with Michael, this connection developed through thoughtful conversations, clearly stated expectations, and mutual respect for boundaries. When he asked about my past, I shared honestly, neither dwelling in victimhood nor minimizing the experience that had shaped me. The most powerful lesson from my journey wasn't about betrayal, but about self-trust. The instincts I had questioned and ignored had been accurate all along. My childhood lessons about financial caution, initially dismissed as unnecessary paranoia by Michael, had ultimately preserved my future. These realizations didn't justify cynicism, but reinforced the value of honoring my own wisdom. Today, watching another Mediterranean sunset from my terrace, I feel genuine contentment. Not because everything unfolded as I would have chosen, but because I discovered strengths I never knew I possessed. The offshore accounts that began as financial protection became symbols of a deeper truth, the importance of maintaining your own safe harbor, regardless of how calm the current waters may seem. If my story offers any wisdom, it's this. Preparation isn't pessimism. Self-protection isn't selfishness. Boundaries aren't barriers to love but foundations for its healthy expression. And perhaps most importantly, sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away with your dignity and future intact. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you find strength in difficult times? I'd love to read your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic conversations about overcoming life's challenges. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message, share it with them. Remember, our greatest setbacks often lead to our most meaningful growth. Thank you for being part of my journey.